I would like to welcome our presenter today. Shannon Bowman-Sarkisian is the Public Services Librarian at the Mount Vernon City Library. We're excited to welcome her for her presentation, Trial by Flavor, Culinary Literacy at the Mount Vernon Library. Welcome, Shannon, and I will stop sharing so that you can share.
Great. Okay. Hi, I'm Shannon. Let's talk about trial by flavor. First, I'm going to just share a little bit about Mount Vernon. If you're not familiar with us, we are famous for our annual Tulip Festival in April, which is coming up soon. So we're a pretty small city of about 35,000 people in Skagit County. So we are on the ancestral lands and waters of the Upper Skagit Indian tribe. We're about 15 miles from the Upper Skagit Reservation and 15 miles from the Swinomish Reservation. And I have a little breakdown of our population identities. We have multiple languages, multiple cultures represented here. So, we have different foods, different languages. Our collection we're building out our world languages collection. So we have a very large Spanish collection, and we're starting to increase our Ukrainian and Russian collections as well right now. And recently just added some Tagalog books. So Trial by Flavor is largely run by myself, Elisa Kester, who is our Public Services Associate, and Suzanne Butler, who is a retired culinary instructor from Skagit Valley College and is also the president of our Library Foundation. To start with how this program came about, we have a seed library here, and that grew out of an idea that is from before my time at the library, where because we're an agricultural community, because so much is grown here, and food is a big part of the community identity, we wanted to look at ways to make sure that seeds would not go to waste. So we have the seed share, which is very, very popular. It's starting, it's usually popular at this time of year through spring. We get donations from individuals, but we also get donations from farmers and nurseries, country stores, things like that. So we wanted to make sure that people had access to grow, regardless of whatever their situation. So why that is important to Trial by Flavor is that Trial by Flavor evolved out of the seed share. So the idea, one of the things that came up from the creation of the seed share is that people didn't necessarily know how to cook with the plants that they were growing. And so we wanted to find a way to introduce people to new ingredients and new cultures, especially because we are a community that has multiple cultures represented. And one of the challenges that we had is that we didn't have a kitchen in our old building, and public health did not allow us to let people taste the food that we were making if we were cooking outside of a commercial kitchen. So we make these cooking kits. We usually make 100 of them. So there's a demonstration, and people will get to see how that dish is made. It's generally recorded and available on YouTube later if people want to refer to it. They also have a recipe booklet that comes with the cooking kit, and then harder to get ingredients like spices are generally in the cooking kit, non-perishable items, things like that. So this is a picture of my niece and nephew from a trial by flavor we did at the end of 2023. We did Armenian sarmas. We did my great great aunt's recipe, and it was a very well loved program. We had 3 generations of my family making this cultural dish with a recipe that had been passed down several generations. So, talking about instructors, we have we pull from our community. So we have Suzanne, who is a formally trained chef, and we have home chefs like my dad and Laura. We also have had Diane Smith, who is from the Washington State University Extension. They have educational programs, and so she's an educator with the extension. This is a picture that I really like. It's from when my family did the sarma recipe. And you can see it's my dad, my siblings, me, and one of my nieces and one of my nephews. So I will say, like, that was, I feel like when we do a recipe that has a tie to family, family like lore and family history, that can be a really powerful educational tool. And not everyone, I don't think it's necessary to do it. It does involve, like, how do I want to say this? Sort of sharing personal life stories, and in a way that I was totally comfortable for me and I didn't mind, but I don't think it is needed in order to do this. It was, honestly, it was fun for me to do and to share, especially because there typically aren't a lot of Armenians in Washington State. So it's a culture that isn't well known by people who are not from an area where you might have interacted with someone or had Armenian food before. So challenges, there are a lot of them. um, Money, it's expensive to put together the cooking kits. I definitely think there are ways to minimize the financial impact, and I have shared a toolkit from the Philadelphia Free Library's Culinary Literacy Center, and I think there are a lot of great ideas in there on how to put together a cooking class or culinary literacy program without having such a huge financial impact. The labor is also, there's a lot of labor involved. We, primarily it's myself and Elisa preparing everything and getting everything ready. Again, I think you can scale culinary literacy programming to fit your budget and your time and your needs. Priorities, I just put this, so we work with our local television station. We're a city department, they're also a city department, and our priorities are not always exactly the same. So I think what is the same is, like, we want to educate the public and share information. The TV crew would love to do a very, very professional sort of in studio cooking class, and our goal is really to do a live in person with members of the community present. And obviously that is that adds more chaos, it adds more noise. So it can be hard when you're working with community partners, to just, I think it's really important to communicate what those priorities are, and then just work through conflict when it arises. And my experience is just, you're just honest and say, like, this is what we're able to do, or this is what we want to do. For us, it typically, like, it comes down to the presenters, and our presenters typically want to have a live audience. And so that was just sort of like, that's the boundary, is the presenter wants a live audience and is not as comfortable doing a studio type, it was in the library, but just like no people there kind of situation. Food safety was also a challenge, not that we were not knowledgeable about food safety. I really recommend that at least anyone on your staff or any of your volunteers who are doing this, if they don't already have a food handler's permit, to get one. I also recommend the Serve Safe certification, depending on how challenging, or how in depth you want to go with food safety. For us, how this manifested is that people really want to eat the food that is being prepared in front of them. So um, when we used a hot plate, and we have sort of just like we just had a on-site cooking kit, and we were not allowed, people are not allowed to eat the food, and they don't like that. It smells delicious. Of course you want to eat the food. So just being aware of what public health expectations are, and making sure that you follow those, first of all, because you don't want anyone to ever get sick, um, including staff or volunteers, or injured, and then also not wanting to get shut down by public health, or just causing like friction between your organization, your library, and public health is always a good thing. Um, we evaluate our program, so every cooking kit, along with the recipe booklet and ingredients, has a evaluation with it, so people can fill those out and bring them back to the library. And our participants are not shy. They are very good about telling us what they're interested in. And we have adjusted the program based on feedback we've received. So people really wanted to learn how to cook with tofu. People really wanted to learn how to make pad thai. So we ended up doing the pad thai with tofu based on that feedback. We've also, there were a couple times when we didn't do a cooking kit just because none of the ingredients we had were non-perishable. And based on the feedback we received from the evaluations, we were like, people like, they like the food kits, but the cooking kit, but they're not like married to it. So it's really, I mean, we should evaluate anyways, right? But it's really helpful, especially in this case, when trying to figure out like, hey, like, what do we want to do in the future? Like, what's resonating with people? What can we cut out if we're needing to make some hard decisions based on budget, perhaps? And like, are we doing well? Are the instructions clear? So, and if you have grant funding, this is definitely, there's evaluation is as part of what your requirement for that. So, but yeah, I recommend this style. It's been very helpful for us. Funding, the bottom line is always important, right? So our funding source, we have a small programming budget, but we received grant funding from our local food co-op. So that's the Skagit Valley Food Co-op here in Mount Vernon. They, in 2023, we received about $3,000 from them, and it was like we were able to do the most amazing programming because of that. It's not sustainable funding, so that can be hard, that can be hard to maintain. I made some other recommendations. My experience, both at this library and with my previous library, that was that grocery stores have not been super into helping with funding, but that's just personal experience. There's no I don't have like real data to back that up. We have received funding from some credit unions. I haven't tried banks, but they might help. And then our Friends of the Library and Library Foundation have both supported in various ways our culinary literacy programming, either with purchasing ingredients or the foundation helped us with purchasing small wares like bowls and utensils, things like that. I haven't found like a perfect grant for this program. I've been looking for going into the future in our new space, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But I'm sure they're out there. So I like I said, I think food co-op really is, if you have one in your community, I know not everyone does. I feel like that's a partnership that is really beneficial for both the co-op and the library. And it, typically I think culinary literacy and food education aligns with the mission and vision of many food co-ops. So they have been our greatest partner in this programming. So this is a picture of our new building. We just moved. Well, we didn't just, we moved in. We moved in August and we opened to the public in November of last year. The building is still not finished. So it's definitely challenging, but we have a beautiful new space. This is a super innovative project that honestly is wild that it even exists. So this building was built without any levies needing to pass, without any real financial impact on the local community. So most of the funding came from federal Department of Transportation grants and loans. So you can see it's a big building. The library is really just the first floor. So the 3 floors above are largely parking. We also have, they're not all active yet, but 78 electric vehicle charging stations. There's electric bike charging, lockers. So there's, as you probably are aware, there's not a lot of funding out there for building a new library. However, there at least was a lot of funding for parking infrastructure and electric vehicle infrastructure. So the city of Mount Vernon did some really creative planning here and just combined the library with the parking garage and electric vehicle charging. So to our knowledge, this is the largest public electric vehicle charging station in the United States. So, I mean, super exciting. There's also a commercial kitchen that is not finished, but will be by May, I think. So for me, as someone who's doing culinary literacy and cooking programming, this is huge. I'm so excited. So it's right now it's hard because we haven't been able to do any cooking programming for the last 6 months. And Trial by Flavor is the star of our adult programming. So, transition is difficult. This is a huge new adventure that we're on. And so, obviously, it's not easy to do. However, super excited for what's to come pretty soon. So, I have a rendering of our kitchen because it kind of looks like that right now, but it's unfinished. So this is what it will look like pretty much. We have a walk-in cooler with a small walk-in freezer behind. You can see in the background there's two large ovens. I think you can fit 4 turkeys in there at once, because you can fit 2 turkeys per oven. Um, Everything's electric. Um, there's these prep tables available as well, a grill, you know, range top, etc. All the things you might need for a kitchen. Um, so for the future, um, for Trial by Flavor, we are working on our upcoming programming once we're up and running again. Um, we have Ukrainian, Filipino, fry bread cooking demos. I'm hoping to expand. Trial by Flavor has largely been an adult program, but I would love to do more intergenerational cooking classes, as well as like, cooking for kids or cooking for teens. Another thing we've talked about doing is sort of more like basics cooking. So knife safety, how do you carve up a chicken? How do you stretch your food budget? Things like that. So Trial by Flavor in the past has really been um, about uh, exploring global spices and ingredients that someone might not have used before in cooking. And we're kind of evolving to meet a need of like more basic cooking skills. So we shall see how things pan out in the future. Everything's a little bit like up in the air at the moment, but it's also really exciting to see. So I think for me, what's important is always to listen to my community and really um, let them be the guiding force of how our programming is being planned and implemented. So another piece is that the kitchen will be available for rental by people who are looking to use a kitchen for a food-based business, or if they just are like, I want to make a bunch of jam and I don't have space in my kitchen. Um, I am working on a kitchen incubator program. I um, don't know how soon. It's not funded, so I don't know how soon that will launch. However, there is a huge need in Skagit County for access to a commercial kitchen. There is a lot of need for the education piece on running a business and launching a business. So one of our community partners is the Center for Inclusive Entrepreneurship. We're also working with the Mount Vernon Chamber of Commerce. So sort of what we're putting together is like access to the kitchen through the library. And if you're enrolled in the incubator, you would not be paying like a kitchen rental fee during that time. And then you'd also be connected with mentors and classes through either Center for Inclusive Entrepreneurship or the Chamber. I also am working on Indigenous knowledge workshops that are not necessarily food-based, but some may be food-based, with primarily Upper Skagit and Swinomish tribes. So we're excited to do fry bread. It's important for us to like be respectful of um, closed practices or information that's not necessarily uh, uh, appropriate for everyone to learn or know. So what we're doing with our presenters for the fry bread is that they're not sharing like their family recipe. They're just sharing a more general fry bread recipe. And I think that's also an important part of the education piece of like, why are we doing that? And why is that important to do? So that's also like a very new area of programming for us. Okay, so what else did I say? Oh, that's all I said. So this is me. This is my favorite picture that I took during construction. That's our walk-in cooler. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or if I can help. If you would like me to mail you some of our like recipe booklets, I can do that. I cannot promise how soon I will be able to do it because I'm super overwhelmed and slammed right now, but I will try to do it as quick as possible. So I'm totally, thank you for listening and letting me share about our programming. And I'm happy to answer any questions as best as I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much. First question that came into the Q&A is if you could share what's in your kits.
Sure. It varies. So typically, it is dry ingredients, but it's based around. In the past, it's been based on around a spice. So, um, there are some spices that are not as easy to get here. So, I did a recipe for kufta, and um I could not find Aleppo pepper anywhere. um like shopping in person, I was able to find, I live in Bellingham, I was able to find it at a Bellingham Whole Foods. Um so like something like that is sort of what we build the recipe around. Um and then we'll throw in, like, we might put in rice or cornmeal, but usually it's the spices. And I think when we shift to in-person cooking classes where the participants are also cooking and making the food and they can taste it, I don't know that we're going to be doing cooking kits again, um, because they were sort of to meet a need of, like, it's a bummer that people can't eat food that they're watching and smelling.
Was going to be my other question. So, but I think you basically answered it. So once you have the commercial kitchen,
Mhm.
then participants can both get in there and help cook, but also can eat the food that's made at the program.
Yeah, we've been saying, I mean, we've been promising it for like at least a year. We've been saying, like, in the kitchen, you'll get to eat the food. And so we've had to postpone our cooking classes because our presenters are like, I'm not doing a demo where people can't taste the food because I've promised them that they can taste it. So um, that is you know, it's a bummer to be like, we had something on the calendar for February and we had to push it out because the kitchen's probably not going to be done till May. So construction.
I know your library is really unique in how you got funded and that amazing partnership to do that. But are you also unique in having a commercial kitchen? Do you know of other libraries across the country that have that?
I know of other libraries that have learning kitchens. So like I mentioned, the Philadelphia Free Library's Culinary Literacy Center. So they have like a whole building that's dedicated to cooking and food education. And so I know they have, I don't know if it's commercial, like permitted. It must, whatever the requirements of their area are, I'm sure in place. I actually worked in a library in Indiana that didn't have a kitchen at the time I worked at it, but now has a kitchen at one of their branches. So that's Monroe County Public Library in Bloomington, Indiana. So um, I know, you know, I at least know of a couple. I don't know how common it is, but I think it's more common than it used to be.
Cool. Got another question from the Q&A. What have you seen as the impact of this program in your community?
I would say the largest impact that I've observed as a librarian is community building. Um, so I think like COVID really, I think across the board disrupted community and people's ability to connect with each other. And to me, I see adults particularly coming to an in-person event, which can be hard to do. I think everything is kind of up in the air now. Like, we don't always know what people will come to. Um, so I think that's huge. I think the introduction to other cultures, especially given that we're in a community that is diverse and that has multiple um, cultures represented, um, you know, introducing people to a new type of food. To me, I'm like, food is the great uniter. It's a great way to um, have people learn about. It's like a nice entryway into learning about your neighbors who may speak a different language than you. Um, and there's just something like comforting about food and gathering as a group to like enjoy a meal. And even though people are not able to taste the food, they're still like watching it be prepared. um People will like talk to each other. We've also had like a mom group um came with like their babies as like sort of their like outing. So but yeah, I think it's the community piece is really um I think the biggest impact.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your program with us and for the work you're doing. I am going to share my screen once again just to close us out. Great. So again, huge thank you to Shannon for sharing her knowledge with us this morning.